Hello, welcome to the program. I'm Jane Dutton. The war in Syria has lasted for nearly 7 years, and in that time, many regional and international players have had a direct impact on what's going on the ground. The United States, Russia, and Iran have all been involved in some way or another. Turkey is in the middle of a military operation in northern Syria. It wants to push out Kurdish fighters from the area closest to its southern border, but it hasn't been an easy fight. On Saturday, 7 of its soldiers were killed in an operation near the town of Afrin. That's a Kurdish-controlled enclave in northwestern Syria. Turkey considers the Kurdish YPG a terrorist organization and an extension of its outlawed PKK, or Kurdistan Workers' Party, which it's been fighting for decades. The Turkish military plans to create a 30-kilometer buffer zone near the border. President Recep Tayyip Erdogan has warned people in the area to evacuate.
It's up to those in the area whether to evacuate the places where terrorists are present or not. As we have openly declared, without playing games, we will continue to clamp down on terrorists regardless of whom they are accompanied by. Nobody should expect us to act according to the statements of those who do not even respect their own words.
Al Jazeera's Jamal El-Shal sat down with the Turkish foreign minister and asked him about the operation in northern Syria.
There have been YPG, PKK terrorists in Afrin region, and they were sending harassment fires and the rockets to Turkey, to different parts of Turkey, and it became a serious threat to our security and also to our borders. We warned them, we warned the countries who have been engaged with them. Nevertheless, they increased the harassment fires. That's why we launched this operation.
Turkey's President Erdogan announced the start of an air and ground campaign into Afrin on January the 20th to push out Kurdish YPG fighters near its border. France has called for a UN security meeting to discuss the offensive, while Iran and Syria have both condemned the operation. And the US has called on Ankara to show restraint, while it said it understands Turkey's security concerns. Meanwhile, south of Afrin in the Idlib province, opposition fighters have shot down a Russian fighter jet. Russia's defense ministry says the pilot ejected but was killed on the ground in a fight in the town of Sarakeb. Afterwards, Moscow launched dozens of airstrikes. 23 civilians died, and it says its military killed 30 fighters. There's been heavy fighting in Idlib for weeks. The UN claims about 100,000 civilians have been displaced. Let's bring in our panel. Joining us from Ankara, Bilal Sambur, a professor of social sciences at Yildirim Beyazit University. In Moscow, Vladimir Sotnikov, a senior analyst for Asia and the Pacific at Infojet Global Solutions. And in Istanbul, Ahmed Al-Barai, a lecturer at Istanbul Eydin University. Good to see all three of you. Thank you very much for joining us on Inside Story. Bilal Sambir, obviously a horrific attack, impact for Turkey. Talk us through what you think happened and what sort of fallout it's going to have on Turkey, losing these forces.
Well, first of all, today is a very sad day for the nation of Turkey. We are really mourning as a nation for our loss in Afrin operation. You know, today is 15 days of after Afrin operation has been started, and this loss is the greatest loss so far Turkish army is facing in this operation. Of course, this is a great loss. There is no doubt about that. But this is a military war. So every military war has its own risks, and I think although now Turkish government and army has a big loss, that does not mean that this operation is going to stop, and Turkish government express that it is determination.
You say it's not going to stop. I mean, how long can this feasibly go on for?
I think this is an open process. Turkey doesn't set a date. Turkey said that as long as this terrorist organization occupy this region, Turkey is going to continue its operation. So this is an open process and it is an open operation. But definitely this operation is not going to be very short. It takes very long time. All indication shows that this operation is going to take very long time.
Okay, Ahmed El-Barai, what do you think this means for Turkey now? Clearly, this is a setback. How big a setback is it?
For Turkey, this is an inevitable war, Jane, and it is a must that they go to Syria not to occupy others' land. Ankara always states that they don't fixate their eyes onto any other soil, and they don't have any intention to stay there. They already had the 2016 Euphrates Shield operation. They cleaned the whole border from the Daesh elements, and now they do accuse these powers, the US-led coalition, of replacing one set of terrorists with another set of terrorists. For Turkey, this is a kind of national security threat that the YPG, that is the same as the PKK terror organization that is designated by the United States. Now, the problem of Turkey, they cannot convince, or their ally in Washington is not convinced that the YPG is the extension of the PKK, though many of the evidence on the ground are very clear. Recently, the photo of the PKK founder, Abdullah Öcalan, was hit by the fighter jets of Turkey inside Afrin, where the YPG elements, they publicly say that they are the offshoot of the PKK. So it is a must for Turkey to go ahead with this operation, whatever the cost.
It could be open-ended, and you say, excuse me, jumping in, that they have no intention of staying, but this is a question of sovereignty, isn't it? How does Syria feel about this?
That's a very genuine question. The question is, Turkey did tell the Syrian regime about the operation with a written notification. That was the first time that Turkey give this notice. It seems that they agreed with the other two guarantors, the Iranians and the Russians, to go ahead with this operation. Turkey, on the political side, tried to gain more momentum for the operation with the United Nations, with NATO, and even with the United States, who do understand and recognize the self-defense measure of Turkey. Now, it is a kind of, for the Syrian regime, it is a kind of, the sovereignty. But on the other hand, the regime is doing nothing to push these elements away from the Syrian border.
Okay.
The regime in Syria is unable.
Okay, let me bring in Vladimir Sotnikov. What is the view from Russia about what is happening, this latest setback for Turkey, and the fact that Turkey looks like it could be there for a pretty long time at this stage?
Well, actually, the view is that, first of all, there are different outside players who are engaged in this bloody civilian war in Syria. So the Turkey is undertaking its own operation, but at the same time in Syria, but at the same time Turkey as well as Iran, together with Russia, the three countries are guarantors of the so-called Astana process. So I think that everybody understands that if some outside player have some concerns, so he actually undertakes what he is supposed to be for his own sake. And another thing is that Turkey, I'm talking now about the province where is Idlib city.
Okay, sorry. Before we get to Idlib, we will move on to Idlib. But before we get there, I just want to carry on focusing on Afrin for a moment. What is Russia getting out of this? Because clearly Turkey couldn't have done this without Russia allowing the airspace to be opened up. What's the trade-off for Russia?
Well, actually, Russia is just monitoring the situation. That was said by our top leaders. It was said by the press secretary of Russian President Vladimir Putin. We are monitoring the situation, what is going on in these areas where there is the hostilities between the Kurdish detachments and Turkish military men.
But Bilal, I should imagine though that Russia is enjoying filling the vacuum left by the US when it comes to Turkey relations, right? I mean, it's particularly strained at the moment, the fact that the US continues to support the group that Turkey is fighting.
Well, first of all, we must understand Russian position very well. The aim of Russia is to put every inch of Syria under the control of Assad regime. That is the threat of Russia. I mean, first of all, Russia asks Kurds to leave their region and leave this region to the control of Assad regime. That is very important point. We understand that. The second point is that Russia is very well aware of the conflict between Turkey and United States. Russia is happy to see the emerge of problems between Turkey and NATO and United States. As much as Turkey is distancing itself from US, the position of Russia is getting more stronger. So I think Russia in Syria is not only allying itself with Turkey. At the same time, it creates problem between Turkey and NATO and United States.
All right. Ahmed, I'm just wondering what Turkey's response is going to be. We heard the Turkish Prime Minister saying that YPG forces will pay twice as much. So I'm just wondering what it is that Turkey will do in response and how the Kurds feel, considering that they basically lost an ally in Russia, haven't they?
Well, first of all, I have to say this about the day after Daesh, Jane. Everybody was speaking about after the Daesh defeat, what is going to happen. And now it is the moment of the truth. Everybody is speaking about his own political interest, whether the superpowers like the United States, they're going to reward the YPG for their efforts in the fight against Daesh. And now it's the Russians who are interested in their military base in Hmimim in the south, in Latakia and other provinces. So the major threat for the Russian is the HTS, the Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, that is in control of the Idlib province, and now it's going to escalate, it seems, because they're a major threat to the regime and to the Russians. The Iranians are on the same page with the regime as well. Now the Turks, they do believe that it's the YPG who should be defeated because the United States is going to go on with the support of them regardless of the sensitivity of the Turks. And that's the problem with Turkey and its ally in Washington. The Turks do not keep any word, they do not believe any word coming out from the Oval Office in Washington, because they already experienced the Washington's lies, if you will, when it comes to the Kurds. They promised Ankara that they're going to disarm them after the defeat of Daesh. That didn't happen. On the other hand, they told them they're going to allow the local councils to run these villages and cities, that is the majority of them mainly Arabs. This didn't happen, and the Kurds are still there, constituting a major threat to Ankara and to Turkey. And on the other hand, they said they're going to withdraw them at least from Manbij to the east of the Euphrates River, and this didn't happen. So Ankara will go on with this, and this is going to play the reshuffle of the whole strategy in the whole region between all the players will go on till everybody knows that every power in the region has its own national interests.